I didn't really have any new employees, but I definitely had, friends or the kids of friends that were graduating from college and were going off to the workforce and doing things. And there was absolutely a difference. It was people who were not really matured, not really prepared, very, very and that's great, and that's really great, and I can see that in tech where, you've got your head down and you're programming and you're doing what you're doing every single day, and there isn't a lot of interaction and so on and so forth. I mean, that is a perfect example of how those people from those industries need to be given the opportunity. Sometimes you just have to do what you're good at, and then you have to then offset or have outside resources assist you in the areas where you are not good or are not you're not good, you're not strong in those areas, or that's not your forte. You're good at doing X, very good at doing X, keep doing X.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vibe It Up, the podcast where we explore the dynamic worlds of tech and companies around the globe. So, I'm your host, Dan Tudorache, and I bring over 20 years of experience in the tech industry, wearing multiple hats as a solution architect, leadership coach, trainer, and now as a psychologist too. So, you might be wondering, what's the vibe all about? Well, the vibe it's about the people which are creative enough to create a better world for us. So we have today Kerim Antoine Kfuri. Welcome. It's an honor for me to have you in my podcast, and I will let you present yourself. Welcome, Antoine.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here. My name is Kareem Antoine Kafuri, as you said. I am currently the president of a company called the Atlas Network, which is a global supply chain solutions company. I have been running this company, founded it almost 20 years ago, in the idea of making mass production and global sourcing safe and delivered safely for people, and small to mid-sized businesses primarily. The reasonings behind this was because there's a significant amount of fraud in this industry. There's a lot of lack of transparency in this industry. And my focus and goal of my company and my technology that we've developed and so on and so forth is to gain visibility and trust in this space. And so that's a bit about myself. Outside of that, I do a lot of thought leadership. I speak at a lot of different conferences. I write op-ed pieces all on the subject. And, happy to be here with you and happy to discuss whatever we would like to talk about today.
Sure, I'm happy to have you here. So it seems you have a lot of experience in at least in management positions, CEO level, and so on. So how it started? I mean, I guess you didn't start it as a CEO at the beginning of your career, right? So how it was for you in the beginning?
Sure. I mean, in the beginning, I started, in the corporate world, which I always think is a great experience for any entrepreneur to have, to be able to make your mistakes on someone else's dollar, to learn, to be educated, to really develop, be in different kinds of positions and roles where you can actively grow and develop different kinds of skills and talents. So, I did work in the corporate world for a while. I was in the financial industry for many years. My background and my education is in finance, international business, and also business law. So I've done things in all of these realms. I worked in the investment banking world for a little bit. I then went to the regulatory side where I worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission in Washington, D.C., in the Office of International Affairs. I worked at NASD FINRA, which regulates the stock market. And it was through those experiences and also my interest and ambitions in entrepreneurship and in international business that somewhere in my mind, these things all came together. And you start doing what any entrepreneur really does, which is look for problems and look for solutions to those problems. and how you could do it better than others are doing it, whether it's individuals or companies and organizations. And that's where I sort of landed on my final path that I've been on for the last 2 decades, which was, you know, understanding that in this industry, it was very fragmented. There was not a lot of communication and visibility, and it needed regulatory sort of principles in place and protocols and capabilities to perform at a better, more efficient level. And there weren't a lot of services that actively did that. Many of the companies that were within sort of supply chain and procurement and international sourcing would sell on the dollars to say, hey, we've got a really low cost solution for you. We can make things for you overseas, and it's not a problem. You save money doing this. I never saw it that way. My vision was always to say, you want to produce overseas because they have the best technology around. They have the best work ethic. You have the ability to scale there better and faster than anywhere else on the planet. Plus, there are cost benefits, but it has to be done properly. And if it's not done properly, mass production becomes mass disaster, and you end up working, you lose all the benefits you thought you were going to gain. So that was kind of the beginnings and the ideology around why to create the company and solve those issues and those problems and sell based upon dependability and efficiency rather than just low cost solutions. And yeah, so my trajectory started with, again, a lot of really good corporate experiences in different places that I then transitioned over into creating my own firm, that we serve a very important purpose and function. So
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen you also worked in tech companies in Accenture.
correct, correct. So I did work at Accenture for a little bit. I was on the finance side of Accenture, but great experience in the fact that I saw some very large scale tech rollouts happen, that I was able to be a part of from at least the infrastructure and management side of this. So some of the larger projects that I had seen when I was there was Verizon, large scale telecommunications company, and projects, ongoing relationships that Accenture was managing, and tech rollouts they were doing for Verizon, as well as one of the larger projects that I saw, which was the US Visit project, which was all of the customs and sort of border patrol type of technology that was being put into airports and borders and so on, that Accenture was helping to do in the wake of 9/11. So after 9/11, the US Visit project was a huge project that Accenture won. And I was, a little bit on that engagement. So I was able to see those things happening when I was down in the DC area. Outside of that, I also saw some very significant technology implementations at some of my other roles. For example, at NASD FINRA, there was a large focus upon Sarbanes-Oxley, which was protocols put in place to get additional transparency within corporations. And this was a regulatory protocol that all companies had to sort of utilize in order to kind of sign off on their financials at the end of the year. That they went through kind of their Sarbanes-Oxley process and looked at the different divisions of their departments, the control matrices, the risks, the objectives, and looking at these things. Well, I was a part of a big rollout of a huge software that was developed by an outside consulting firm for NASD FINRA. I was on the NASD FINRA side and helping to educate the teams and the different departments on how to utilize these systems to get better, efficient outcomes within the organization. These experiences in tech at Accenture and there at NASD with that large scale rollout were very, very critical towards how I chose to run the company, and also some of the technology platforms that we've built inside, most specifically our Atlas Connect system, to help us manage risk and objectives and many of these things that I had learned in the corporate world. So again, through the corporate side, transitioning over to the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah, awesome trajectory and path you had. I mean, you started and you've seen how technical projects are deployed, how are built, how technical people are thinking in and when they are building something. So in your opinion, I mean, I've seen as a consultant in tech industry, I've seen a lot of C-level managers from non-tech companies which are buying tech products or are building tech products for themselves, but they don't have experience with this kind of projects. In your opinion, should they delegate someone they trust internally, or should they hire someone internally to manage those projects, or should they rely only on the consultancy company that are building that project?
Um, I think that they should only have someone do it internally if you will have the best outcome. Meaning, I'm outcome driven. If you just say we're going to hire XYZ person in XYZ department just because they seem to be the right person, but they don't really have the relevant experience or background or interest or otherwise. And I say interest is important too, because many people get sort of internal promotions within a company that they didn't even want. Someone just comes to them on a Tuesday and says, "Hey, you're in charge of this now." And they're like, want to do this. Well, what kind of outcome are you going to get from that kind of a situation where you just have a large corporation and you're handed different kinds of roles and responsibilities that you may not even want to have? So I think it really comes down to having the best people for the best outcome. And if that's external resources, that's external resources. If that is a person from a different department that they need to move from that department to this department to get the best outcome, that could be an option too. I mean, I know that for our company exists specifically for small to mid-sized businesses that do not have that internal experience or tried to do it internally and it was failing because they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the capabilities or whatever it was. So in the end, they came to a third party group like ours, which technically we're kind of a supply chain consulting and supply chain development group, and say, hey, we couldn't figure it out, or we don't have the people to do that. So can you help us run this, manage it, build it? We save them cost, time, effort, energy, resources, even for the prices that we would charge them to do the productions for them. They're still saving money because to do it on their own or to build those infrastructures that didn't even exist or those interests that weren't even around or available, it's a losing situation. So as long as you're outcome driven, the decision based upon if it's an internal hire or an external hire lays itself out.
Hmm. Yeah, 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 and that's because the companies which are building those products know what they do, and from the getting the requirements until delivering and testing and seeing putting in place in infrastructure and so on, which you don't have those capabilities, those skills in your company. And if you try to have them, you will transform yourself in a technical company, which I don't think you want. So
Sometimes you just have to do what you're good at, and then you have to then offset or have outside resources assist you in the areas where you are not good or are not you're not good, you're not strong in those areas, or that's not your forte. You're good at doing X, very good at doing X, keep doing X, make X scale and grow and build, and then have others that are really good at doing Y help you do better so you can do better with X. So it's that kind of situation.
yes, yes, indeed. And um, uh, I want us to go a little back in time in your journey. Um, as a junior, when you finished the, I don't know, university and school, how hard it was for you to adapt to the job you were being hired for, I don't know, first times. Did the employers have look at you because you have certain type of skills, or the attitude, or what do you think you had to get that job in the first
Yes. I mean, what's on paper only takes you so far, right? You can go to a great university, have great grades, this, that, and the other. That only just gets you the opportunity to maybe get in the door, or even through people you may know who may open up opportunities for you. It gets you, in the door. But what really sells you as a hire is going to be you. And what I mean by that is that we've always been kind of a people business. Even in technology, it's still a people business. And so there comes a moment during interviewing or meeting or otherwise where you have to show who you are, and you have to be honest, you have to be quick with answers that make sense, you have to be intuitive. If they put you in different kinds of challenge situations, you have to know how to essentially work your way through those challenges or those opportunities. So I think for me it was definitely the fact that I was confident. I'm a confident person. I'm ambitious. I don't mind to work very, very hard. Um, and But at the same time, I am clear about the fact that I like to be a leader wherever there's the opportunity to be a leader. And some people respect that and appreciate that, or looking for that, looking for people to take leadership roles. And others, not as much so. They just want, someone who's not going to um, want or care to be in those types of positions. So long story short of it is that, I think I just exhibited leadership, I exhibited ambition, and I exhibited traits that, the right people on the other side of the table said, "Yeah, you're what we're looking for." You know,
hmm And now, after all these years of experience, when you look back, um, if you were to give yourself an advice, because you know the challenges, you know what it was hard, what it was easier for you, what advice would you give yourself to the younger version of you?
don't work with friends.
Okay.
Don't work with friends. Don't work with family. Don't do those things. No, that, I mean, I think that that's just a basic principle that a lot of people know when they go through those issues through time, where we've worked with some friends or tried to help someone out, and it didn't work out, and so on. You still want to maintain the friendship, but there's weird dynamics and things like that. I mean, that would be one thing I would say. But another thing I would say is, don't waste so much time being afraid to take a chance on yourself, because that's really, in the end, the only chance that's worth taking the most, because you can control your destiny. You can control the outcome. You can, shape or mold or have great success, if you put your mind to it. And the human race has been proving that from the beginning of time. So don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. Be smart, be calculated in what you do, but don't have analysis paralysis where you like sit around, you're like, I don't know, am I going to do so, and then you don't do anything, you know um I definitely got to a place where I said, all right, it's time to go. It's time to basically just do my own thing and do what it was. I think it was a little later than I would have liked to have done that, but I think I did it the right way. Could I have done it a little sooner and maybe with a little less fear to do it? Probably. But yeah, I mean, those would be some of the thoughts.
Mm, yeah, yeah, indeed. And often when we mix business with family, with friendship, might not end that well sometimes. Unless, I don't know, you have the same vision, you have the same objective, and the same synergy. To say there is a synergy there which you can use and make things better because you have someone who has your back. but they are rare, and both person need to have emotional intelligence skills pretty high. In that. And speaking of emotional intelligence, how do you think it impacts a leader outcome and results now, having those skills as a leader?
Ask the question again. Sorry, say it again.
How do you think that emotional intelligence skills, right, impacts a leader results?
Okay, so when it comes to emotional intelligence, I think that there are two sides to this, and both sides are equally important. The one side is being able to have empathy, to be able to understand and have an emotional capability to essentially feel with people you work with or you are doing business with or whatever it may be, but that there is a human condition between each other. And I do believe that the givers in this world win more than the takers do, and the givers are always those that are willing to give of their resources and their time and their emotion and their humanity, right? So this is an important part of this. However, equally in balance with this is not being emotional in business. And what that side is about is it's about making rational decisions based upon data, based upon mathematics or business type of decisions that generally allow for the best outcome for whatever the goal and the objective is. And sometimes some people may get a little bit, feelings hurt along the way or otherwise and so on. But as long as it's based not on emotional decisions, but decisions that are actual factual in nature or benchmarks in nature or reasonable goals in nature that are or are not being met, then you do have the best outcome. So it's a really strange thing when it comes to emotional intelligence. More importantly is when to use it, how to use it, right? When to be emotional and when to have no emotion, absolutely no emotions whatsoever. That even though this is the right decision to take, you know that there may be some downstream impacts, but that is the decision you have to take. This is where leaders, this is where you have the difficult role of being the leader because you have to weigh those balancing points out. You have to make the tough decisions and you have to know when to use your emotions and when not to. And so very, very critical, very important, and in an equal balance in some ways between being emotional and not being emotional at all. And it's a tough line to walk, but that's why not everybody can be a leader.
Yes, yes, indeed. And what I understand from you is that you need to control your emotions more and take rational and decisions which are calculated, are based on numbers, are straightforward in the business direction, right? And not be guided by emotions when you take business decisions. At least what I understand from here.
That is correct when it comes to certain business decisions. But again, I think that there are things like, for example, if you get together a bunch of your colleagues to have like a retreat, right? So that everybody is feeling good as a team and everybody's kind of able to express the way they feel about the work or what's happening in their lives, and so that's having emotional sensitivity and intelligence that there's a business outcome from that, which is not guided by data. I mean, it could be in the end that everybody worked a little bit harder, or everybody was a little the productivity was a little better, but you didn't. You may have even done it with that goal in mind. But the initial idea is, hey, my team really needs a pick me up. So I'm going to gather everybody together and we're going to do something that whether it has an outcome or doesn't have an outcome, we're going to do it. So, it's not always that you have to take the business decision or take on a cost or an expense because there's a direct line correlation to a data point or to a mathematical output. Sometimes you just do those things. Now you don't do them all the time or every day, and you have to take the hard decisions the other way too. Like if you have to lay somebody off, they have a family, or that they work very, very hard, but what they are doing is hurting the overall company or the team or the productivity. And you've tried many times to do different kinds of things to try to improve the performance, and they're just not the right person for the work, and so on. And you take a tough decision to do something like that, but it's the right decision. Someone's going to not feel good about it. You yourself are not going to feel good about it as a leader. Nobody wants to break such news to someone or a situation, but it's the right. So, it's a balancing act again between not showing any emotion or having empathy and really sympathizing too. So it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, definitely. And um, what I also have seen that there is a correlation between how much responsibility and accountability you put on people, because they need to have that. And if you don't give those responsibility, they will go in the other safe place, which is not productive. And it's always a balance between those two. And speaking of that, when we think now with the impact of AI, all the tools that we have at our hand, all the tools that will be developed from now on, what skills do you think people should have to get jobs and to adapt in this continuous changing environment?
I think it's very important to have an understanding of new and emerging technologies for sure. I think it's important to understand how to still problem solve instead of relying on technology to problem solve. And I say that because the greatest outcome comes when humans and computers work together, right? And there are certain inputs and outputs that only humans will be able to really facilitate, and technology will be able to facilitate, at least today. Maybe in the future it'll be a little bit different. But the reality of it is that, and Alan Turing said this, the father of the supercomputer, the British mathematician. He said that when computers cease being infallible, they will also cease to be intelligent, meaning that we need to make the mistakes in order to figure out how to make the best solutions. And our problem in our modern time is we're too lazy. We have our technology, we have our phones, we have this, we push a button. We don't look for the answers anymore, or we don't have to search for the answers or go to the library or read a book or walk a far distance because we have to, or we just don't, things are so much more convenient now, and that I think in many ways is going to be the downfall of innovation, because as things continue to be more and more convenient and we continue to delegate more and more of our basic fundamental functionalities in our lives, even as simple as turning on a light switch in a house. You say, "Oh, I'm coming to my house. Let me, talk to my phone and tell it turn all the lights on." There's something that you lose in doing that. You lose an aspect of yourself and your connectivity and your tactile relationship with your house and so on and so forth. I mean, you then just eventually end up drifting through this life. You're not really experiencing this life and connecting to different components of it. So I guess the skills that people are going to need are going to, one, be very on top of new innovations that are occurring, but two, always keep a very human perspective around how we can be better and better problem solvers and use the technology to achieve greater and greater things in our lives and in our workplace. Those will be key. think, key points.
Yeah, yeah, very well, very well said, and I love your perspective with the connection with the environment which we are in. Because yes, we stick just on a single device, being laptop or phone, we lose the connection with the other things. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and what's really where we really see that and is a real shame is during the pandemic, right? A lot of people were stuck in their houses. They weren't really able to like talk to people as much as they would like to. And, people like Amazon did great because everyone was just buying things from home and so on and so forth. But there were a lot of things that were lost in that time too. I mean, I know children that lost socialization skills, to the basic things of being able to communicate with other friends and talk to people, because for 2 years or a year and a half they couldn't really go outside, they couldn't really play, they couldn't be in school, they couldn't do things. And you see what happens to human beings when they're like taken away from human contact and interactions. Even now, I mean, I have kids and different people, and the way that they talk to you or talk to each other is for me bizarre, because we learned how to actually talk to each other, because there was a time where there were no cell phones, and there was a time when there wasn't this, that, and the other. You want to meet someone, you go out to a bar or you go to a place and you meet someone. Now again, it's this age of convenience and it's this age of technology, and you can have amazing outcomes and amazing things that come about from it, but everything within moderation, right? This world is about moderation. There's daytime, there's nighttime, there's black, there's white, there's duality in this life. And my fear is that with AI and increasing technology, that we start to lose some of that duality. We start to lose some of that. And you know, that's really what I think we have to be careful about.
yes, and I just wanted to ask you about, did you had new employees just finishing their university or schools or whatever it is in during the pandemic, or studying during the pandemic, and if you seen something different regarding their social skills?
I didn't really have any new employees, but I definitely had, friends or the kids of friends that were graduating from college and were going off to the workforce and doing things. And there was absolutely a difference. It was people who were not really matured, not really prepared, very, very fragmented social skills. You go to shake their hand and their eyes are down, not up. They don't look, there's no eye contact. There's no like, they don't know how to speak or develop creative thought as you're discussing with them, because they're not used to that. They're used to, they want something quick, they look at online. They don't really have to talk to too many people. Their network is very small. So yeah, I mean, I think public speaking is super important. I think they need to continue to promote and push any type of situation where kids or young adults are in uncomfortable situations in front of crowds, because you need to do that. You need to know how to say, hey, I don't know what I'm going to say, but on my feet, I'm going to have to think about something because I got 100 people in front of me that have to, hear what I have to say, you know? And so I think that we need to continue to promote those kinds of things with new employees in the workforce. I think that there should be like a public speaking course that they have to take. I think that each new employee has to, get up in front of a group and talk about what they're doing or who they are or what their background is, and do those things to basically be able to get more and more socially engaged.
Mm. Yes, indeed, and I've seen the same thing in the tech industry, because everything is more inclined toward working with technology. People in general tend to communicate less with each other, and it's a struggle for many of those that this that time when you said that they are promoted to a management position, middle management or team leading position, they wake up and say, "Okay, don't have those skills," or the other people say, "You don't have those skills for that job."
And the shame of it is that some of these skills are like very, very basic skills. It's like just the ability to talk to someone or the ability to, problem solve or the ability to do these things. And for some people it comes very naturally, for other people not as much.
Yeah.
And but in either case, I know for sure that the more and more tech that we're infusing into our daily lives, the less and less those skills are being used. And um I just wonder what the outcomes are gonna be of that, you know?
I don't
You
know.
know? Yeah.
Indeed, and yeah, that's why I do what I do now, because I get out of tech, of building systems and solutions and the technology, to creating skills for people that are building those solutions.
And that's great, and that's really great, and I can see that in tech where, you've got your head down and you're programming and you're doing what you're doing every single day, and there isn't a lot of interaction and so on and so forth. I mean, that is a perfect example of how those people from those industries need to be given the opportunities to present. They need to be given the opportunities to come up with the creative thought, the creative idea, or the team building and say, hey, look, you know what? You're doing this in your area and you're doing this in this your area and your area. You guys are going to come together as a team. You're going to work together to figure this thing out. It's not just going to be you doing you and you doing you and you doing you. So almost forcing interaction and saying, I want you to work it as a unit, not as like individuals, so that you build more of the camaraderie and so on. And they have these very, very interesting sort of like social construct like experiments where you get together with people and you say three things about yourself and three things you like, three things you don't like, then they say two things they like about you, two things they don't like about you, and everybody starts like talking to each other. But the funny part about it is that these days we have to build the time for those experiments or those things, whereas historically that would just be a part of every day. Every day it was like you were communicating, but now it seems like we have to really take the time to build those things in.
Indeed, indeed, and many companies or many I don't know, leaders are not considering building those skills as part of their responsibility, the company responsibility. They put the responsibility on employees, I don't know, hand or back, which is somehow okay or right to do that, because they say, I have you in my company, but I need you to have those skills. But I don't push you to build those skills. So it's always a circle here. If we push continuous on processes, on I don't know, performance, on what you do, but we don't take care of the other part, it will always be a gap in this.
Correct, correct. And I think the other issue too is that many companies, and I've seen this even with companies I worked with, years and years ago, they are also relying upon technology to be the source of education for their employees. Oh, go onto the portal and go look at this video on leadership, or go onto the portal and go look at this thing on, presentation skills. And they want people to basically learn via, online learning, right? But guess what? There is a lot that can be said for it not being online learning and being interactive and actually having discussions with your boss, who is your mentor, learning the leadership skills on the job when it's happening live, not through some kind of a video. So, there's a place for all of it. There's like a backbone. Like I just finished my AI course in business strategy at MIT. I just finished that. It was an online certification and course, like, 2 months and so on. And it was fine. I learned a lot, which was great. But the vast majority of it was watching videos and, of, a teacher talking about this or case about that and so on. I mean, there was some interaction where you'd have to take some tests and you'd have to submit comments and you'd get some responses back and so on and so forth. But the vast majority of it, 70% or whatever it was, online learning. And, it just, there's only so much that you connect with that, and there's only so much you can take away from that. So, those are the kinds of things that I think the current generation has to deal with that, is a little complicated.
Yeah, and that's what I said, because there are two different things: information, which you can find information now in a lot of places, free information. There are a lot of leadership free trainings, courses out there. It's information, but transformation is the one when you actually apply it, and you have feedback on it, and you interact with other people to understand how well you have done that, if you need some other improvements. But being alone and just doing an e-learning course, it will not help you transform yourself and your skills. It's just information. You can take it, you can understand a lot of part from it, but you cannot integrate it and transform yourself in that direction completely. So, mhm, okay. One question, it's a rapid fire round. So, if you could have dinner with any figure from the tech industry, dead or alive, who would it be and why? It shouldn't need to be just on the tech industry.
Not well, I was gonna say in the tech industry, I'd probably say Steve Jobs. And I'd say Steve Jobs because he was equally a tech person and equally a philosopher. And I like that. I think that in business, whether it's tech or otherwise, you need to have that deadly skill set of understanding products and technology and what makes people have an interest in what you need to do, but at the same time have the psychology of why the human being wants it, why they want to move towards that product. And I think he was very refreshing in that way. Some people appreciated that, some people maybe didn't appreciate that as much, but that's how I saw him, that he was equal parts technical business person and also philosopher. So I would say Steve Jobs would be a good one.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Well, somehow it goes with a majority of the answers. There is Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Nikola Tesla. I've heard, which is also a great inventor. So we have.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's you look at the if you go back and you look at some of the interviews that Steve Jobs did through time, or when he was unveiling like the iPod, when he first unveiled the iPod, like, 1,000 songs in your pocket. You know, I mean, these basic buzzword phrases that he would say, they just rang with like everybody, they understood, or the development of the new MacBook, everyone's like, oh my God, it's amazing. Why? Because they made it dramatic. It appealed to the innovation and the sense of curiosity of humanity. They're like, oh my God, these are not just pieces of plastic or machines that do this, that, and the other. These are things that can transform my life, and I that was the magic of like what a person like him brought. And I try to bring some of that in some of my thought leadership as I talk with people about supply chain, where it's not so much about like, hey, we're getting it made right, or it's getting made from like, getting it from A to B or to C place. It's that these are the reasons why it matters. This is the reason why it's going to be impactful to you or otherwise, So these are all the thoughts I have in mind.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. In marketing term, storytelling, and all these skills, you cannot beat that.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's true. It's true. And again, I think that's the kind of leaders that I like. The leaders that are not just leaders because they've had achievement or they've done something, one way or the other, but that they've actually had impact. They've actually like made an impression upon people so that those people make a true connection with either the products or the companies that they're working for. If you can do that, if you can make an impression, then that's a different thing. That's a whole different level of achievement, I think, outside of just numbers or the development of some product. It's like, you know, not only have we have the numbers or development of some product, but now like it's a part of your life and you care that it's a part of your life and you want to seek it out and you want to know more about what's happening with this thing, you know?
Yeah, and that's the visionary style of leadership, and which is getting that message to for anyone in the company, for them to follow you and to trust you and trust that you will bring them in the place you envisioned and dreamed of. So yeah, yeah, thank you. um, there is one resource, a book, or I don't know, movie or whatever it is, that impressed you and helped you towards your journey, that you want to recommend.
I mean, I like the Art of War. You know, Sun Tzu obviously is we're talking about 1,000 year history of business fundamentals and practical knowledge, which is good. Um, Movies that I like to watch or have watched that, left an impression on me as a young man kind of coming up in business were things like Wall Street. If you've seen the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko and everything. I mean, because it shows how much, achievement can be done, but at what costs, and what greed really can do to people or not. These are kind of more like business related type of movies. Um, those would be good. I mean, most recently, I've been reading some books in the realm of supply chain by MIT professor named Yoshi Sheffi, who's a well-known person, and he has a very good perspective on many years of working in the realm of supply chain on these kinds of things, especially around AI and other aspects of tech and the intersection point between that and supply chain. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different areas, but yeah, these are just.
Yes. Okay, okay. Thank you very much. And as we prepare ourselves to close our podcast and discussion, could you, I don't know, do you have some insights that you want to leave with the audience after this interview?
Yeah, I mean, the insights I would say is that you know um, you're on this earth for a finite period of time. So with that in mind, make an impact. In whatever field, whatever industry you're working within, strive to make an impact, to make an impression, to leave your mark, to do what you do as well as you can do it, because that has its own levels of achievement that you can be proud of and excited about. Um, Also, at the same time, don't lose sight of what's also very important in your world and in your life, which is going to be your health, right? If the machine's broken, nothing else can work. So make sure you don't neglect your health, you take care of yourself, and also that you spend time with those that you really care to spend your precious moments with, which are your friends, your family, your colleagues, whoever that may be. So yeah, I mean, it's about just knowing what's most important in this world, which are those relationships, those friendships, and at the same time, achieving success in your areas where you can do, can be most successful within, and that no one's going to tell you that you are being as successful as you can be. Only you will feel that way or know that or have enough of a sense of ambition to say, I'm not really achieving my full potential, and then make changes accordingly. If it's not working out for you where you are, change it. You are in control to change your destiny. and you should do that when you can do that. So those are some quick thoughts.
Awesome, and very very good advices and insights. Thank you very much, Karim. And at the end, you could leave feedback for me. How did you feel during this hour?
Great show. Very intuitive and insightful questions, which I think is very good. I think that I really liked how you are digging into the depths of what makes people that you're interviewing tick. What is their background, their history, what matters to them now, what have been impressions from the outside, what they are looking forward to for the future. So I think you did a very good job in this podcast as a host, and I really appreciated the conversation. I appreciated the questions, and I think we had a good discussion here.
Thank you. Likewise, it was the same for you. I felt good and everything went smoothly. Okay, thank you very much, Karim. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vibe It Up. I hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation. And before we go, I want to extend a big thank you again to our guest for sharing his valuable experience and perspective. Thank you, Karim.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure.